Are you stuck in the same old routine at work? Do you find yourself hitting a creative wall, unable to see beyond your current perspective? It's time to break free and unlock the power of fresh perspectives. David Gouthro back with a new guest. This time I have the pleasure of having as my guest David Newman. Welcome, David.
Thank you, David. It's great to be here.
So I was just thinking, sometimes people are interested how I get to know these folks. And we first met when you were coming up to our CAPS conventions in Canada and doing a sort of a 50 days of getting started or something like that. Incredibly generous for a number of our conferences. And I just sort of have followed you over time and, seen the books that you're coming out with. So it was great when you said yes. I can't remember if you asked or if I asked you, but one way or another, we're here and I'm happy about that.
Me too. Thank you so much. Yes, it was it was like a 100-day track for emerging professional speakers. And then I did that probably for about 5 or 6 years running. And my fellow namesake, Tony Newman, is
Right.
the one that was originally responsible for this entire disaster. So
Oh.
we're just gonna blame her.
And Tony's great. I don't see her very much. I see her lately in a pool somewhere with Jer, her husband. But Tony's a great pal, so that's a great connection.
Yeah, she's a really good human being.
We have glue. We have glue. So, David, one of the things when I asked you what are you kind of passionate about, what shall we chat about today, and you talked about market eminence and a number of different aspects of that. So I have no idea. I don't have any data on my listeners. I love every single one of them. I don't know anything about them. So for those that may not have heard the term or understand it differently, what do you mean by market eminence?
Well, that is a fantastic question, and many people do not know this term. I have a new book called Market Eminence, which answers this exact question. So it's very simple. It's basically three components. So if you want to be seen as the best of the best, the top 5%, whether you're a CEO, founder, executive, corporate person, entrepreneurial person, nonprofit person, whatever field of endeavor you're in, if you want to be seen as among the best of the best, this term market eminence is the formula that will get you there. It's got three parts. The first part is simply visibility. And a lot of people now in the age of AI and social media overload, like, how in the world can I get any kind of visibility that is significant? You do not need to be visible to the general population. You just need to be visible to the segment of that population that matters to you. No one typically buys products or services or people sight unseen. So job number one is to be seen. Second part is what I call respect. The way that we get respect in this marketplace of ideas these days is if we deeply understand the people that we're trying to connect with. So in other words, they go to your website, they see your latest LinkedIn post, they look at your last Substack newsletter, and they stop in their tracks and they say, holy smokes, I felt that David Gouthro was talking to me. I felt that he knows our organization so well, he must have installed video cameras in our conference rooms. He must have installed listening devices on our phones. We were just talking about issue X or problem Y at a board meeting. This guy gets it. So that's part number two, is respect coming from knowing the people that you're trying to connect with almost better than they know themselves. And then the third part is brand preference. Brand preference is really about a combination of messaging and positioning and differentiation so that if you do this right, the ultimate definition of brand preference is it becomes risky, dangerous, and dumb to hire anyone else, or it becomes risky, dangerous, and dumb to go work for any other company, or it's risky, dangerous, and dumb to invest with any other firm. So whether you're looking for talent or media coverage or investors or prospects and customers, that brand preference, and that affects all of those stakeholders, the brand preference simply means I want you, that you've resonated with them to the extent that they are actually scared to work with anyone else.
Okay, so working backwards, you have brand preference, respect, and
Visibility.
Visibility. And when you said visibility, I mean, I think a lot of times people hear that and assume that that means playing the algorithm game. Like, how do you get search or show up the top one or two, and you buy your way to the top, and it doesn't necessarily, equate with competence, just visibility. So maybe we could go through each of these. And by the way, for those of you out there that are driving, don't worry. I'm going to put the contact information for David and his book and where you can get it in the program notes. So come on back for that. But so for visibility, what are some thoughts on how to go about doing that in a way that's not about gaming the system, it's about doing something solid?
Yes, 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 yes. So this is a very common objection and observation that I get from the clients and audiences that I work with. They're afraid it's going to be about buying ads.
Yeah.
They're afraid it's going to be about cheap gimmicks or PR stunts or being weird for the sake of being weird. Now, you and I are brothers in weirdness. We know that weirdness actually pays off and it's wonderful and it's great, but you don't need to be weird for the sake of being weird. This is not about publicity stunts. This is not about being controversial or stirring the pot for no reason.
Especially
So,
if it's not natural for you.
yes,
Right.
exactly right. Right. It's not about putting on anything that is not naturally authentic to you and your personality and your company's mission and so on. So, what does that mean then if it's not all of those things? If it's not all of those things, we can be in the marketplace and we can be on social media. We can have a website. We can have a LinkedIn presence. We can do videos and webinars and demos for customers and all kinds of things. If all of those things look the same, sound the same, and feel the same as your competition, that is a recipe for obscurity and invisibility. So, what does that mean? What do we need to start working on? How do we get attention in this crazy AI driven world? So, the kind of content and the kind of message that you should put out into the marketplace, there are three different kinds of things that we should focus on. The first one is moving away from how to content. David, I got bad news. How to content is done. It's finished. It's over. Stick a fork in it. It is totally done. What we need to focus on, and what AI is not really great at doing, or at least not great at doing right now, we need to be ultra human and we need to be teaching our audience and our listeners not how to, because that's been commoditized, but how to think. How to think is the new coin of the realm. So, strategic, high level, advisory, human based insight, not information, because information is now, that game is done.
Yeah.
Insight is the new precious and valuable commodity. So, how to think. Second thing, second area of content is what to believe. What to believe and what not to believe. Separating the signal from the noise, separating the wheat from the chaff, busting some myths, correcting some half truths, pointing out the lies, the assumptions, the misinformation, and the outdated information about your product, your service, your category of expertise. The third and final area is how to get ready for what's coming next.
Hmm.
I will tell you, CEOs, corporate people, entrepreneurial people, the thing they hate the most is being blindsided, ambushed, and surprised by something that they could have seen coming, but didn't. They missed the clue. They missed the signal. They didn't spot the trend. So, what can you do in this third category to help your audience see around corners, do some trend spotting, do a little bit of advanced scouting about what's coming down the pike 3 or 6 or 12 months from now that they might not recognize, but you, because of your expertise and experience, you can see and you can help them prepare so they're not blindsided, they're not ambushed, and they're not surprised. So, this immediately raises you to the top 5% of your market if you focus on how to think, what to believe, and what not to believe, and how to get ready for what's coming next. And a lot of times, the CEOs and founders and executives and experts that I work with, they have this information, they have these little nuggets, but they're like, "Oh, I didn't think that was important. Oh, I thought that was just my personal opinion. Oh, I thought everybody knew that." And so they don't realize how valuable it is because to them it's obvious, but
Right.
to the rest of the world it is anything but.
Well, I think sometimes it's having all that information that's kind of floating around, but there's no structure or organization to it, so they don't see patterns and
That's
things
right.
like that. Like I talk to my clients about the need to first of all turn their radar on and to reset it. Right. So
Yeah,
here's some, and some things might be 20 years out, some might be 5 years out, but to at least spend some time looking 20 years out and then bring it in closer as things become more relevant. But I love that. So how to think. And I think you use the phrase insight versus information. And I think that also ties into wisdom because
hmm,
it's kind of like the information is what's so. The insight is so what and what now.
yes,
I kind of carry that process going, and then what to believe and how to believe it. And it's tough because everyone that I talk to, they realize they have to make decisions in spite of the veracity of any information that they happen to have coming in, but you still have to do it. And
that's
then that
right.
notion about getting ready, it's not like, okay, let's prepare and we're good for 5 or 10 years. We could just cruise and then we'll go what's next. No, it's an ongoing process. And I could see that part of it's persuading them that they should be thinking about these things when they'd rather not because it's uncomfortable. But if it
Yeah,
is uncomfortable, better to be going that path with someone that's providing some guidance.
that's right. Exactly right.
So that's visibility. Second one was respect. Tell me more about
Yes.
respect.
So respect is really, if to put it in plain kitchen table English, have you done your homework? Do you know who I am? This is your audience talking. Do you know who I am? Do you know what I'm up against? Do you know the day to day frustrations, heartaches, challenges, problems, goals, dreams, wishes, aspirations? Basically, do you have x ray vision into my soul? If you have x ray vision into my soul, I am going to pay attention. My ears are going to perk up. I'm going to say, man, this company gets it. This CEO gets it. This team gets it. They know what I'm going through. And often when we come across a person or a resource that has such an accurate description of the problems or symptoms or conditions that we're experiencing, we automatically give them credit for having the solution. So clearly they know what's going on. Clearly they've diagnosed this to a great level of intimacy and detail, but they must have the answer. They must know how to fix it. In my first book, David, Do It Marketing, I it's a 250-page book, but I said, listen, if you want to summarize this into one sentence, the ultimate goal of marketing is to convey two and only two ideas semicolon, if it's going to be a sentence, semicolon. Number one, I get what you're going through. Number two, I can fix it. That is the entire purpose of marketing, is to get those two ideas across the finish line to the audience that matters to you, to your target market. So thinking about, you know, declichéing your website, declichéing all of your communication. Uh, I sometimes work with clients and I say, listen, let's have some fun. Let's print out your website and let's print out your three closest competitors. And I give everyone a Sharpie and I say, look, we're going to take a Sharpie and we're going to black out the logo and we're going to black out the company name so we can't tell whose website is whose. Can you tell the difference between your website copy and their website copy? Your glamorous brochure and their glamorous brochure. Their last three LinkedIn posts and your last three LinkedIn posts. Your last email newsletter blast and their last email newsletter blast. And sometimes they go, oh my goodness, the answer is no. It's like, well, you're not going to get the respect of that target market if you look the same, sound the same, and act the same. If, however, you are demonstrating that X-ray vision into their soul and you're talking about a urgent, pervasive, expensive problem and you're describing it in the exact same terms and the exact same words, that your client is using to describe it when they talk about it, that will win attention. That will stop the scroll. That will get them to say, holy smokes, I felt like you were talking to me. And so, thus, when I have a need in this area, I am going to call you first. I'm going to remember you. I'm going to bookmark you. I'm going to connect with you because clearly you get it and you can help me.
So maybe we could dive into this one a little bit because the different things are occurring to me. And one thing is if people get that respect, that understanding off their website. I also think about, what happens when you're face to face. And I'll tell you why this came up for me just yesterday. Because, conveying that you know about their problem. Because one way is to have gathered all kinds of information. Another way is to exercise curiosity and ask them to see what the differences are. And so we were walking in the park yesterday. We were walking the dog. And we ran into another person with the dog, and my wife started talking about Alzheimer's and the difference between this and dementia and stuff like that, showing all this knowledge. I didn't have the heart to tell her that the person she was talking to, I actually knew was a doctor who works with elderly patients. Right? So, so she had this knowledge that she thought was unique, and it was just totally misplaced. I know this isn't going to go well. Unfortunately, this doctor was very polite and said, "Oh, yeah, I didn't know that." And I'm thinking, "Okay, well done. There's some good relationship skills there." And I found this working when I worked on occasion with First Nations groups, with Indigenous groups, where I work with one or two and start to feel that I know something about their world. And every time I've tried to bring any of that information to another First Nation, it just slaps me in the face that they are all so different. And you think you don't know anything. So, rather than trying to, when it's face to face, realize it's different online. But I don't try to demonstrate how much I know as a way to establish credibility without asking a lot of questions and checking and things like that to
Oh,
ensure that
yes.
not only do I know something about it, I know enough that I don't know everything and that I really want to know about you in particular. So hard to do that on a website, but I totally get that's something that you can convey in your communication, in your blogs, in your whatever it might happen to be.
Sure, sure. But you know what? There is actually a way. I've had a number of clients where they've changed their website to so the standard formula for conveying this I can see into your soul is a set of bullets that starts, is this you?
Right.
You wrestle with, you're not sure about, you've been successful with X, but not so much with Y. There's something definitely wrong, but you can't put your finger on what it is. All of those are a little bit, you're taking a risk, right? I mean, you obviously know the general cross section.
Hmm.
Here is here is the way that this makes people think, and it avoids the telling the doctor about Alzheimer's problem. So start asking questions. So, for example, I'm just going to go back to the website copy because it's very tactical, practical. People can implement this right away if they want to. Our clients typically come to us when they are asking questions such as, to what extent are we great at so and so? To what degree have we mastered such and such? Um, How yeah, so these are questions of degree, right? It could be 1 is, "Gosh, it's awful, it's terrible." 10 is, "We are awesome at that particular one, no problem, green light on that one." So asking questions like, "To what extent? How comfortable do you feel? How confident are you in?" Right? So these kind of stems that we can
Establishing a
start
gap.
putting questions in, they go, "Oh my god, we're doing great in area 1.
Hmm.
Uh, we kinda suck at area 2. Area 3, I've never even thought that that was important, but it probably is. Area 4, so now they're doing a little bit of a self-assessment, not because you told them what's wrong with them, but you're asking these questions that are assuming that, they're not all 100% green light all the way down the line. They're now self-identifying and self-diagnosing based on those questions that are asking, to what degree, how confident are you, how consistently do you, to what degree do you feel you have this dialed in, and so forth. And then sometimes when people even pick up the phone and call or email, like, hey, I saw those 7 questions on your homepage,
Yeah.
and we're okay in 2 of those areas, but 5 of those areas, I think we need to talk.
Well, yeah, and that definitely, I think, establishes that respect because they know that you know enough to ask that those are questions they should be considering. And I think anytime you can get a client to think, it's a bonus. Like I'd say it's more than the bonus; it's essential. Like one of the things that I love on this podcast is if someone says, like, how do I measure the success of a particular podcast? Is and I don't do this consciously, but how many times did the person say, "Good question"? Right? Because it's typically it's not something that's prepared, it's responding to something. That's a really good question. By the way, I'm preconditioning you to say that sometime in this podcast, David, just to be clear, right?
Excellent.
But for someone to say that's a good question, to them that's saying that's something that I need to think about, and that brings value to that relationship. That builds a bridge.
Yes, absolutely right. And whether it's articulated or not, because sometimes we're not in the room to hear good question.
Yeah.
But, let's say they've heard one of your keynotes, let's say they've read one of your articles. If it is thought provoking enough where they're essentially saying good question, they're going to forward it to their, top team. They're going to forward it to their C-suite colleagues going, "Hey, this article is really thought provoking. It made me think of our situation with,"
Yeah.
and now you're a person of interest in the C-suite because a piece of content that you put out there was asking those good questions.
So I've got all my notes all over the place now. So okay, so we've got visibility, respect, brand preference. What are some ways to go about building that?
David, that is a great question.
I love it when people say that.
That is such a good question. So so think about, it's funny, whenever I speak on this topic, I point out that we are both the consumers of this kind of messaging and we are purveyors of this kind of messaging. So it's like, well, what makes you prefer one brand over another, whether it's in the B2B professional services setting, whether it's at the grocery store, whether it's wherever. So, for example, there is a beer called Arrogant Bastard Ale.
Mm.
Arrogant Bastard Ale. Have you heard of this beer?
No, but I'll be looking for it as soon as this call's over.
So the label on this beer, it starts out saying, "This is an aggressive beer. You probably won't like it. It is strong and bold, and perhaps you'd be more comfortable buying a beer put out by a giant corporation that tastes like carbonated whatever, carbonated PP." I'm not sure they quite say that, but it's close. Um, uh, and then the way it ends is, "Perhaps you're mouthing these words as you're reading them." So it says this beer is not for everyone, right? This beer is, and so they're using humor, but they're also saying, listen, if you don't like strong beer, this isn't for you. Go buy Miller Lite, go buy your favorite Canadian beer, go buy some other swill that's sold in the grocery store. So that is one component. I'm not saying that we need to insult our audience,
Mm.
but making it abundantly clear that this is not for everyone. This is not for everyone. And maybe it's not for you, but I'll tell you who it's for, right? And so I'm going to quote the great business philosopher, Jerry Garcia. Jerry Garcia said that you don't want to be considered the best of the best. You want to be considered the only ones who
Right.
do what you do.
Love
So
it.
there's an element of differentiation, there's an element of positioning, there's an element of having a unique mechanism to delivering the work that you deliver. In the case of a speaker, for example, perhaps it's someone that uses a crazy duckbill nose horn thing in their keynote. I don't know. I don't know if there's a guy like that out there, but that would be a very unique experience, a very unique mechanism. So that's the second part is, so number one, make it clear that it's not for everyone.
Yep.
Number two, have some sort of unique mechanism that is uniquely your own, your trademarked process, framework, toolkit, what have you. And then the third piece of this is don't be afraid to piss people off.
Mhm.
Because, my friends, if you don't risk turning some people off, you will never turn anybody on.
Yep.
So stop playing it safe. Stop playing in the middle of the road and really start to claim your tangible sources of excellence. So why should people pick you versus the competition? I come out of the technology world. So 25 years ago when I had a real job with a real paycheck, and by the way, real health benefits and real stock option plan, and it was great. Oh my God, employment, it was so wonderful.
Read about these
Anyway,
things. Yeah.
I worked in enterprise resource planning software, ERP software. So this is Oracle and PeopleSoft and SAP and tools like this. My job, it was in training and consulting. I trained and consulted with our implementation partners. So these are the consulting firms that would implement
Mhm.
the software. One of these firms had such a unique aspect of enforcing brand preference. Here's what they said. They said, because ERP software is famous for going wrong and being over budget and over delayed and everything. They would sit down with a prospect and they would say, well, there are five. There are five consulting firms that could tackle this kind of project successfully. And I'm happy to provide you those names. There are three of those firms that could complete it in the time frame that you just said that you need. And there's only one firm, which is our firm, that 100% guarantees our work, that if we don't come in on time and on budget, you pay nothing.
Wow. Wow.
So it's like, okay, there's five firms in the world that can do this kind of work. Three of them can do it in the time frame that you need. Only one has an unconditional 100% risk-free money-back guarantee. And we're talking about millions of dollars. These are not cheap projects. These are $1, 2, sometimes $3 million implementation projects. So when that buyer hears that, do you think they'll be like, "Yeah, give me the name of those five firms. Give me the names of the other five that I want to waste my money with and risk my money with. Give me the name of the three that can do it on time but don't have a guarantee." It's like, no. It's like, I'm in. I'm in. There's five in the world. There's three that can do it in the time frame. There's one, which is you, who can guarantee it. When can you start? How soon can you start? Now the prospect is even thinking, I hope they have room for me. I
Right.
hope they're not too big. I hope they have bandwidth to take us on as a client. So imagine having an invitation and application based sales process where clients are essentially lining up and they're hoping that they qualify for you. When you dial in this brand preference piece that we're talking about, David, that is the dynamic that starts to happen. The buyer becomes the seller and the seller becomes the buyer.
So, when I think of the three aspects of visibility, respect, and brand preference, two of the words, especially with respect to brand preference, that come to mind are, in order to do this takes courage and takes commitment. And the reason I say that, to narrow it down and say who you do work with, and by exclusion who you don't work with, there's kind of a risk involved in that, right? What about all that, all those others that are there? So the courage to make that statement, and then to have sufficient commitment and discipline to stick with it until it has a chance to work. Because I know it's like, oh, well, I just, I really decided to niche down on this and really focus in this area and have this bold, whatnot, and it's not generating revenue. It's been up there for 3 weeks already. I got to go on to something else. And so, being able to try it out and to feel confident enough that it represents what's true for you seems to be important as well. So it's not just
Very much.
about, okay, what can I do? Where's that market out there? It's got to be something that I have confidence that I can work in that and be willing to say no to some things in order to do my best work in this area. I mean, does that resonate at all?
No, absolutely right. And I think the first piece of what you just said, it's not about putting on all of these different layers or
Mhm.
pretending that you are someone who you're not. This is about uncovering and simply revealing. Because, when we sit down with business owners, with CEOs, and we say, well, who's the client profile that you really do your very best work with? There's no hesitation. They're like, oh, it's like, XYZ company and Johnson Controls, and we had this amazing project with Hewlett Packard. And they will give you amazing detail. And it's like, so if I go to your website right now, or if I just talk to one of your sales reps, or will I know that those are the kinds of projects and those are the kinds of companies that you do your best work with? They go, probably not. Probably not. So it's like, why are you attracting non-optimal clients? Why are you attracting non-optimal projects? Why are you attracting non-optimal work? Where if you were crystal clear on what is already true and that you already believe and the things that you say and do behind closed doors, simply open the doors. Open the doors and let the world know where you fit, who's the best fit for you, and why you are awesome, amazing, and the Jerry Garcia of your industry.
So that sounds fabulous, and it comes back to why would someone not want to do that? So I think about striving for committing to gain market eminence. What are the mindsets or the barriers that people put up that cause them to resist committing to trying to achieve market eminence?
Sure. Well, yeah, you put your finger on it. Number one, it's scary as hell
Mhm.
because they now have to be divisive. They have to be polarizing. They have to attract the right people and repel the wrong people. And by the way, that's one of the things that I reassure folks about. They say, "Well, we're gonna repel some people. People are gonna be mad at us. We're gonna get some hate mail." It's like, yes, yes, you will. Guess who will you get hate mail from? People who and I literally have them finish the sentence. People who don't like what we stand for, right? People who don't believe that we can do what you're right. People who have a bone to pick with, yes. People who would never hire us anyway, sure. And I just go on for another 2 or 3 bullets. I say, let's list that out, right? On the whiteboard. People who don't believe that, they're not aligned with who we are. They don't believe that we do what we can do. They disagree with our foundational principles of doing business. There's a values mismatch. It's like, is this the person that you want to have come work for you?
Y-
Is
You,
this
you,
the person that you want to have buy from you? Probably not.
you've just gained respect in my mind because you've just described my ideal customer.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Someone that'll never buy from me. It's,
They'll
if I
never
can
buy.
get
They'll never buy. Now, but here's the flip side of the coin. Think of a giant electromagnet, right? A giant electromagnet in a laboratory. It is so powerful that it attracts things at a tremendous force. If you turn the polarity of that electromagnet, it will also repel at a tremendous force. So this is like installing an electromagnet, a two-way electromagnet in your business. One is it will powerfully attract way more than you're doing today. Powerfully attract all the right fit clients, the right fit media, the right fit talent, the right fit partners, the right fit investors. If you're looking to sell your company, maybe even the right fit acquirers. And it will repel the bad fits, the people that would never buy from you anyway, that would be a nightmare to work with, that you'd never want to hire, that you'd never want to take their money because they're toxic. There's a values mismatch. They are the wrong people coming into you for the wrong reason. And you are putting guardrails and a gate in front of your business to protect you from those bad fits. I said, do you have any problem turning on the electromagnet and pulling in at a much greater rate all those great people? Most folks say no. Do you have any problem installing that security gate at the front door and making sure that the bad fits never get a chance to come in and pollute your environment? They go, no. I said, great. Welcome to Market Eminence, because that's all we're doing. That's all we're doing. And at the same time, we're doing all of that.
so that's incredibly powerful. And so here's the question that I would ask. And I know you're an author. How many books have you written, David?
This one is number 4. This is number 4.
Okay. So you've written 4 books, and I also know that you help other people think these through. So I'm asking for a friend, David. I'm not
Of
asking for
course.
myself here. So maybe you could just describe a little bit how you work with people that want to try to get to that point of market eminence. And again, I'll make sure that we have your contact information in the program notes. But what would you do? So I'm not me, but I'm someone else that says,
Of
"Hey,
course.
I'd like to try to achieve market eminence." How would we work together?
So there are two parts to my business. The first part is simply speaking. So speaking, seminars, master classes on this topic for companies and associations and conferences. The second part, which is more to your question, is how do I work with people and companies privately? Usually that starts out with a VIP day, which is a deep dive, 1-day strategic work session where we literally roll up our sleeves. And when I say we put it on the whiteboard, we literally put it on the whiteboard. We usually have the leadership team there, and we're working through some of these questions about what do they believe, what do they not believe, who do they want to work with, who do they not want to work with. So we get very specific and very diagnostic about this. And then there's a positioning and messaging and differentiation part to that day as well. So after that day, the second thing that I do, and the only thing that I do after that, is a 90-day implementation sprint to help them actually operationalize the ideas that we came up with during that VIP day. So on one side, sort of the one-to-many version is the speaking and seminars and master classes, and then the private client work is the deep dive VIP day and the 90-day implementation sprint.
Well, David, this has been great. I mean, I'm actually going to pass this on to some of my clients that I think would really appreciate hearing this this podcast. So there's something that just the feel of the phrase market eminence just feels good. It's like, yeah, I'd like to achieve that. And those three aspects of visibility, respect, and brand preference make a lot of sense in terms of how to get there. So I would like to thank you so much for your time today. I mean, I've learned a lot. It's got some wheels going for me. I'm sure it will for our listeners as well. So thank you so very much for agreeing to be a guest on this podcast.
So much fun to be with you, David. Thank you.
David Gouthro, discover fresh perspectives. I have to discover a fresh way to close off these podcasts because it all kind of sounds the same when I listen to 12 in a row. But what the heck for now? Thank you for listening. I can guarantee that next week there'll be another guest with some diverse perspectives on something totally different. Subscribe now because on Fresh Perspectives, every episode is an opportunity to explore new horizons and redefine what's achievable.